Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Valerie Lane. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Spur Impact, and we are on the Millennial Summit social media today, talking with some of our 2020 Impact leaders, folks who received the Impact Awards in 2020. If you haven't heard already, the Impact Award nominations are open through the end of this week. So if you know a working professional in Delaware who has made an impact in the community over the last year, please take a moment to nominate them using our form, which will be put in the comments here. It's also bit.ly 2021 Impact Awards. Perfect. It's right there. So feel free to take a moment and nominate yourself or someone you know who has made a difference in the community over the last year. Today, we're lucky to have 3 movers and shakers from the arts community in Delaware, which is one of my favorite communities. Been a dancer my whole life, so I'm very partial to the arts, and I'm thrilled to be in conversation with 3 incredible people who've been friends of the Mill Summit for quite some time and are very deserving of the Impact Award last year. So without further ado, let's bring them on. And I'm going to have Leah, Jessica, and Arreon introduce themselves because they're going to do a great job. Then you don't have to listen to me the whole time. So Leah, we're going to start with you. Feel free to introduce yourself and talk about what you do in the arts community in Delaware and how you've made an impact.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I always hate going first because I never know the amount of time I should spend on it. But I am so honored to be here. So my name's Leah Beach. I actually am from Delaware, born and raised. I went to Delaware College of Art and Design. I have Associates of Fine Arts, and that's from Delaware College of Art and Design. I said that already. And from there, I actually bought a one-way ticket and moved to Kenya. So that was in my earlier 20s, and with the art experience that I got when I was at DCAD, I was able to implement that into some community development and critical infrastructure volunteering. So I spent a year over there and found that with my art, I was able to really impact this incredible community. So then in around 2016, I moved back to the Delaware beaches, and I found there was a bunch of artists that just wanted to get their artwork out there. So altogether, I'm also a photojournalist, but a visual artist. I do murals, and every day is a new day of a different type of art we're trying out. But we just kind of started getting our artwork together and found that there were these artists that really were wanting to give back to their community as well as get their artwork out there. So at the time, that looked a lot like getting artwork out at different events. And I have a fly that will leave me alone. Sorry. It says you have the train of thought. My God.
Getting their artwork out at different events.
Getting artwork yes. Yep. So, kind of fundraising together to kind of form this into a nonprofit. So we started the Dewey Artist Collaboration in 2016. And then that grew into having a much bigger vision, and that became professional development with artists. So we do all different types of career building through studio spaces, communal creation space, as well as professional development, job training, how to price your artwork, bringing artists together. We found that this is something that's not just needed in Delaware, but way beyond that. So we became the Developing Artist Collaboration. So we serve around 350 artists in the Delaware Beach community, as well as artists outside of our community. We're an entrepreneurial modeled nonprofit. Our whole purpose is we do things like shipping out DIY art kits to raise funds for our programming, and really just trying to impact as many artists' lives as possible. So this has been my vision and my baby that I've grown from literally nothing to operating off of almost $200,000 last year. We're the proud recipient of a Longwood grant this year for $158,000. So this has been one heck of a journey. And basically, art school and jumping on a plane to where we are now, and really proud to be here.
Incredible. And I bet in 15 years, you're just going to write it all down in a book. And then some art student in high school is going to find it and read it and be so inspired. Such a great story, Leah. And we're so glad for all the work that you're doing down in Sussex County. And I'll have you talk about the open air markets later on, so we don't want to forget about that. Arreon, how about you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Arreon Harley-Emerson. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Director of Music and Operations at the Choir School of Delaware. So the Choir School of Delaware is an organization that provides, of course, choir, so music education, piano lessons, voice lessons, as well as wraparound social services such as tutoring, mentoring, life skills, access to healthcare, psychological services, etc., that we offer our students and our families. We're located in Wilmington, Delaware, and we are specifically in the Brandywine Village neighborhood. So we're really invested in serving Black and Brown communities in Delaware. And I also happen to be the president of DAA, which is a great organization, which I'll let Jessica talk about the work that we do. But I'm very much so interested in the arts, love the arts, and interested in really arts and equity. And as I think about the impact awards and just kind of the meaning of the word impact, I guess I really think about the word pact and impact, which means that we have to have an agreement or commitment with the communities that we serve, and to really be focusing on what is that commitment and how do we understand that commitment and how do we make good on that commitment.
It's, just a few minutes into the Arts Impact Award conversation, and we're already getting meta about the word impact. Like, what does impact actually mean? I love it. I love it. Merriam-Webster has nothing on Arreon. So great. Thank you. And Jessica, we'd love to hear.
Thanks, Valerie, and thanks for having me this afternoon. I'm the executive director of the Delaware Arts Alliance. I kind of work at the intersection of creativity, advocacy, and policy. So at the Alliance, we are the voice of the arts and arts education in Delaware. We try to educate and mobilize arts advocates across the state to use their voices to create an environment where arts and culture can thrive in Delaware. We do that by connecting folks with their public officials. We do it by giving folks a platform at public hearings. And so I'm just excited to advocate for a sector that I feel very passionately about. We know that the arts can uplift communities. The arts are so important to our health and well-being. They're important. They're an important aspect of economic development in the state and just economic opportunities for all Delawareans. And the arts are so important, as we really found out during the past year and a half, in being able to connect us and create a sense of community around us. And so I'm just excited that I get to work every day on behalf of a sector that does so much good for Delaware.
Incredible. And Jessica, it's like one mind, because that's where I was going next, was let's talk about COVID-19, right? What else are we talking about these days? So during the last year, obviously, it was a lot. We were inside for 15 months. Our skin is not ready for the sun. It's because we were basically in hibernation. It's a lot to emotionally cope with this summer. So what have been some of your favorite arts initiatives, or what are some of the projects that you all participated in or got to observe over the last year that really helped celebrate community, celebrate artists, bring people together, or just kind of help people through the difficult pandemic? Anyone can start.
I think a really amazing part of last year, COVID definitely had a lot of limitations and a lot of times for being innovative. But for us, I think it became a really important time for considering the Black Lives Matter movement and the importance of what an organization can do to support communities of color. Our organization is so lucky that we are in West Rehoboth, which is a predominantly Black and Brown community that has such an amazing culture and history. And we have actually really dedicated ourselves from learning so much about this movement, about representation, about language, about how to be a partner to a community that deserves recognition. And for us, that turned into creating this really incredible mural project and educational resource for this amazing community. And I think this has been a true time for the arts to really thrive and really to become an inclusive environment, especially in Delaware, because we really lack inclusivity in a lot of our arts programming. So that's been like one of our big journeys for us, especially me as a leader, to learn so much. And I'm still a student and still learning. And I hope that more arts organizations can really jump on that as well.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Leah.
I definitely want to piggyback off what Leah's saying. I think that during this COVID-19 pandemic, we've been learning how to innovate art. And by innovate art, I mean, how do we deliver art differently than we did previously? And I think that we had also the opportunity at the same time to also respond to calls for racial justice. All at the same time. And it's been really an incredible journey to see what organizations are doing. But I've been thrilled to see concerts be moved outdoor. I've been seeing in great theater. I know Del Shakes was doing a soliloquy stroll at the Delaware Art Museum, at the Labyrinth. I've been seeing concerts that are taking place, in the Grands, in the Baby Grand that are being streamed. Freeman has been doing amazing work keeping local artists and performers performing still throughout the pandemic as well, and really adjusting to have a really meaningful season. So I see so much creativity. I see maybe even more creativity than there was before the pandemic. And I like to use the word creativity because the arts have always been powerful in Delaware. The arts have always been present in Delaware. But I think that we're seeing a new way of delivering in the arts, a more equitable way, a more excellent way of delivering the arts. And I kind of put that in creativity. So it's funny that artists sometimes can think about the art form and not necessarily how to creatively deliver that. And so I think the pandemic has provided the opportunity for artists, individual artists, performing artists, arts organizations, and arts administrators to be able to explore how we might be able to deliver that art. And because of this virtual delivery of art, this outdoor delivery of art, I think that we are finding more equitable practices because art is going to be more accessible when folks don't have to, travel as far. Art is going to be more accessible when it is outdoors. I just think that this whole year and a half has definitely been challenging. There are no doubts that arts organizations have been put through it, but I think every cloud has a silver lining. And I think that the artists here in Delaware and the arts organizations and the arts administrators here in Delaware have done a commendable job with really not just pivoting, but really changing the way that we deliver arts education and entertainment throughout the state. So it's been exciting to be able to see that.
The innovation was necessary, right? We can tell the folks who were not able to survive because they didn't want to adapt, couldn't adapt. And you're right, the arts have been through it. They had to pivot really quickly. I never thought I would see the Rep Theater at UD do audio only performances, but they did, right? They kept the audience engaged. They kept it going. So really, really cool projects and really cool ways that people have been able to kind of make it through the pandemic. Jessica, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say as arts fan and arts patron, it was really refreshing to see a new and creative delivery system for the arts, for the sector to really sort of step up and continue serving people. I thought it was an interesting time because we were connected more with the local artists. I think local artists, because people weren't traveling and touring, got more opportunity to be showcased in their hometowns than they have ever before. So I hope that's a trend that we see continue as we move into the recovery phase. But as an arts advocate, I feel like something particularly interesting that happened over the last year was this sort of confluence of the arts and the racial and social justice movements. I think people became so aware over the last year and a half of how much government officials and policy impact our day-to-day lives, and basically, everything, the environments that we occupy. And so I was very inspired to see so many people be very, very civically engaged over the last year and a half, not only around arts policy, but, you know, policy related to COVID recovery and relief, policy related to racial and social justice issues. And, you know, really all of these things are very much related and intertwined. And I think, you know, sometimes we're just going along in our lives and we're sort of taking things for granted, or we sort of accept things the way that they are. And I think the pandemic certainly shook us to a place where we were really more interested in using our voices. And I'm glad that the Alliance was able to be a part of that and just making people feel confident in speaking up, giving people the resources that they needed, and making sure they were connected to the right decision makers.
An added benefit of the pandemic, when people had more time to realize, you know, how much their civic engagement really matters, right? Much more likely to get involved now. So many unintended consequences, obviously, that we're, you know, reaping the benefits from and still learning from. So I know that each of you make huge impacts in your community pretty much daily. You all are involved in organizations that are really impactful. But I'd love to spin the question around and ask you how the arts have impacted you as an individual, which as an artist, I'm sure you either get this question a lot and you totally dread it, as Leah's nodding her head. Leah can go last if you want. Or no one thinks to ask you this question because they're like, oh, they're an artist. They don't need to think about that kind of thing. So just to give you all a second to kind of digest over the year that we were inside, I researched a lot of my creative efforts. I did a huge paint by number, which I was like, never doing that again. Thanks for reintroducing that to my life. Got back into knitting and crocheting, which has been lovely. Bought some fabric to get into sewing. I explored watercolor, and it was so lovely because it was an itch I didn't know I had to scratch. And so now I find myself wanting to kind of putz around with arts and crafts and things on the weekends. And so that made an impact on my life because it was a stress reliever that I didn't know I was missing beforehand. So you don't have to get all meta and talk about your purpose on God's green earth if you don't want to, but just how arts it has made an impact on your life even over the last year.
Well, Valerie, there's really something to what you're saying. It's there's multiple studies out there that prove a link between being engaged in the arts and the lowering of our cortisol levels, and our cortisol is our stress hormone. So the arts are sort of, we know for a fact that they help reduce stress and anxiety. And so it's no wonder that you found comfort in your art making over the last year and a half. I think a lot of us did. And there's also something about just flexing that creative, like your brain is you know, kind of like other parts of your body, you know, doing something where your brain and your hands are connected, and you're trying to you know, flex that mind-brain connection. It helps turn off certain aspects of your brain and let you get into other parts of your brain. And I think, you know, overall, a lot of us found the arts to be a great source of stress relief and comfort. For me personally, engaging in the art, I am a maker. I make, I work in clay. I also knit. I work, you know, in all sorts of different mediums. You know, Leah has a pair of my earrings that and for me, it's a huge benefit to my mental health. I think of it almost kind of like exercising. It's just exercising in a different kind of way. I think it gives me a sense of purpose. I think being able to express myself in a way that's, you know, not necessarily using my words is incredibly powerful. And, you know, being able to share a piece of my art making with other people as a way to express love or gratitude is just an amazing feeling.
So cool. And even looking at art, you can tell, the interpretation of what the artist was trying to communicate without using words is another fun part of consuming it as well. All right.
I'll jump in.
Great.
I'll say that I'll start with how have the arts impacted me? And I'll take that in the broad sense and then in the more recent context. In the broad context of that, I think that the arts were a game changer. I was in a program very similar to the choir school when I grew up in Baltimore, and to see the difference of those who were kind of in the choir and those who weren't in the choir and kind of where they are now, there's a striking, and I mean striking difference between where people are. So I definitely believe that art is definitely entertainment, but I also believe that art is intervention. And so for me, art was intervention. And I'm really glad I had the opportunity to take part in such a formative program like that. In the last year during the pandemic, particularly during the kind of quarantine period, I was so busy that I did not have the opportunity to really engage in new art forms. But I will say two things. I learned about some art forms, not that I was actively engaged in being the maker of the art. Well, in one case I was. The choir school, we did a lot of virtual concerts, which required some virtual choirs, which is like, imagine these huge grids of all these people singing in boxes. And just the editing of those things, I have a new appreciation, let me tell you, for folks who do video editing and audio editing. It is an art. Like, it is a high art, and we are not worthy for those. I started out doing them all myself, and I quickly was like, no, I need to engage someone to help, because it's so time consuming, and it is detail oriented artwork. And I feel that whenever we see movies or have recordings, we need to put those people's name on the front of the album, because those people do a lot of work, and it was just insanely revealing to really have a front row seat to that in such an intimate way. So I will say that. And then the kind of other art that I really had an opportunity to take part in, I would say, were the cinematic arts. I confess that I watched more old films in the last year than I have in my entire life. Usually I'm like, if it's not like a current movie, I'm like, I don't want to see it. I'm like, black and white. I'm like, why? So I saw so many incredible films over the last year. I saw, and not just black and white ones, but just kind of classics and things like that. But then I never had really too much of an opportunity to see before. So I was extremely grateful for that opportunity. I watched maybe 5 different Barbara Streisand movie musicals. And I was just like, she was great. Like, bring her back. Like, she's great. So that was a real joy that I probably would not have had it not been for just the isolation of the pandemic.
And now for Halloween 2021, you're getting like the cheetah print, Funny Girl.
Exactly. I love Funny Girl. I had never seen
so good. Yeah.
I loved it.
And a great soundtrack to jam out to.
So good.
So good. Amazing. All right, Leah, your time to shine.
Okay. And I got to think about it this time, so I'm here to impress. I'm kidding. So I don't necessarily like art. I live and breathe it, and it impacts me in so many ways. But I think the biggest thing that's happened to me in the last year has been the lessons I've learned about art. I think the first thing is that I've learned that society puts art in this box and tells everyone that they're not artists unless they can draw. And every single time I meet somebody and they're like, oh, well, I love that, but I'm not an artist. I'm like, why do you think that? Because if you are creative, you're an artist, which last year our slogan, we came up with like, art is essential. This year, our slogan and our shirts and everything is art is what it is. And that is our purpose. And what I believe that if I could shout from the rooftops is that art is literally whatever the heck you want it to be. If you're making cheese, if you're making music, if you're making a box, whatever it is, it's an expression of your creativity. The purpose is not to define it, it's to embrace it. And I think the other big lesson I learned is that art is also not a transaction. Personally, like as I've explored doing more mural work for businesses, I've had so many people that have said to me like, oh, don't kill me on the price. Oh, make sure do you have it done by Friday? Like that whole 36-foot wall? and this is what we're going to pay for it. They treat you like you're like lumber. Well, you're getting a one-of-a-kind thing that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. So now the whole thing that I really put all of my energy into is to telling every person in the world I can know, you are creative, you're an artist, but if you're dealing with any sort of professional, stop treating artists like a transaction. You're getting something, if it's a performance, a musical performance, a choir performance, if it's whatever it is, if it's one-of-a-kind made, handmade jewelry, it's not a transaction. You are dealing with someone's soul. So I think that's really, if I could say at the end of the day, what my biggest impact of art has been in the last year. It's that I view it differently, and I want to teach every person in the world I can to also see it differently themselves.
Such a good answer. Aren't you so glad you had time to think about it this time? I know Leah has the open air markets down in Sussex that I wanted to talk about, and then Arreon and Jessica, if there's any quick plugs you want to give too. So Leah, tell us where we can attend the open air markets.
So we have Creative Market. We're down in West Rehoboth. Come check us out. And then if you don't check us out, check every single other art event that you could possibly find on the internet, anywhere in Delaware. Please support us. We need you to show up right now.
Amazing. Thank you. Arreon or Jessica?
Yes, so we're returning to in-person music making here at the choir school, and we are mounting a musical, a full-scale production musical. We're doing Sister Act, and so we're extremely excited. That's going to be taking place in a church. We actually found this church with this great background at Grace United Methodist Church on July 30th and 31st. Shows are at 7 o'clock, and check that out. It's here in Wilmington, and I understand it's going to be the first full-scale production in the city. So we're excited and proud to be able to mount that.
I will be purchasing my tickets immediately.
That'd be great.
Me too.
Okay. Jessica, anything?
Yes, absolutely. Either do it on your own or do it by going through DAA's website. But however you do it, reach out to your legislators. Ask your General Assembly members to join the Arts and Culture Caucus. It's a great forum for legislators to understand the value of the arts. Ask your public officials to allocate American Rescue Plan dollars to the recovery of the arts and cultural community, and just stay engaged over the summer.
And
so great.
So I was just wanted to add, like, if you go to the DAA website, Delaware Arts Alliance's website, that any individual can join the Arts Alliance, and that we have, of course, organizations that are a part of the Alliance, but individuals can be individual advocates and members of DAA, and there's no cost to it, and we need you as members as well.
Yes, and on our homepage, you can just click the button that says, sign up to be an advocate, and you'll get all of our communications, all of our sort of policy action alerts, just keeping you in the loop about things that are going on that impact the sector.
Amazing. So much homework. Art making, art supporting, art advocating, Sister Act tickets. Like, there's a lot to do. I want to thank each of you so much for carving out time this Tuesday afternoon. I know you all are busy individuals, so we really appreciate snagging some of your time for the Facebook Live here. Don't forget to nominate for the Impact Awards. It closes this Friday. It's a super straightforward Google form. Should take you only a couple of minutes to complete. And it's so great to support our, fellow change makers in Delaware and recognize the people making a difference. So thank you all so much. Please enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And we will be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock with Chef Robbie Jester from Full Circle Foods. So eat your lunch, talk about food, listen to people talking about food. It's a great Wednesday afternoon. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you.